Debugging isn't guesswork, it's a process and a technique. So in this video, I'm going to share 5 debugging tricks that I've picked up that I use every day as a developer. And if you're a beginner, this is exactly how to stop wasting hours and hours on bugs. The first debugging trick is to recreate the bug. If you cannot reproduce a bug, then you can't fix the bug because you don't have the bug. Let's say you've picked up a support ticket and someone has described they've gone on to the homepage and they can see a big black box on the screen. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to that same homepage and see if you can see the black box. If you don't see it, maybe you can try it in different browsers, you can ask a teammate, but if you really can't produce this same error or bug, then you cannot start working on it. So that's an easy fix. Close the ticket. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, let's say we have a real bug and you can reproduce it. We can then start logging things to trace what is happening in the code. So whatever language you're using, JavaScript can use console log, PHP, Vardom. The idea of logging is to place them in key spots that you think is where the code is being affected. So you can see, am I reaching this code in the first place? And then that will tell you whether where you're looking in the code base is even relevant at all. Or perhaps that might be the issue. And it's also useful to log what the value of variables are to see whether they could be affecting something, like if it was empty at one point and now it has a value but then it's empty again and it's not the expected behavior. And then you can try and use this to narrow down where you're looking. So you could maybe think, oh, my code logs here, but it doesn't log here, but it logs here. So it must be between these 2 points. And you can continue to try and narrow this down further. I think logging was probably the first thing that I would do when I'm debugging because it's easy, because you just need to know how to log something, and also can be very, very useful. The third debugging technique you can use is using breakpoints in your code. This may take a bit of getting used to on how to use them, but essentially breakpoints allow you to step through your code and kind of see what the values are of all the variables at those different points in code. It can look scary, but once it's explained to you or you learn how to do it, it's really, really helpful. You could put a bunch of breakpoints at places where you want to check the code and what state it's at before going on to the next one, and it breaks it down. And when you run it in debug mode, you can then, it will hit the first breakpoint and then you can see in the output variable console where you are with this code, and if you can check if it's what you expect, and then you can go to the next breakpoint, and then by that way you can narrow it down, kind of like the logs, but you're using breakpoints. The good thing about breakpoints versus logs is that logs you have to choose what you are logging, whereas in breakpoints it gives you the state of everything as you're running through that process in the code. So I'd really recommend to look into breakpoints in your IDE. If you want a demonstration on using breakpoints, then let me know, I can make a video on that. The fourth debugging technique is trying to isolate the problem. And a way you can do this is by commenting out a lot of code. This way it's easier for you to look through the code if you simplify it by commenting most of it out. You can comment out things to simplify what you're looking at, and you also might notice that when you comment out something specific, the bug disappears. So then you've already narrowed it down to a little section. And of course, these debugging techniques are better if you use them together. And the fifth and final debugging technique is to not get stuck and try and debug alone. If you're not getting anywhere, it might be very helpful to talk to a teammate and kind of just discuss what your understanding of the bug is. And it's great to clarify that, because you might have understood it wrong in the first place, which is why you feel like you're not getting anywhere. Even if you're using ChatGPT to not debug alone, it can be really useful to get things clear in your head, and it might even be able to suggest some things that you could do. Most of debugging is actually figuring out what the bug is, and the easy part is just fixing it. So to summarize all the debugging techniques, try and recreate the bug. If you can't, it's not your problem. 2, log, because it's the easiest and fastest way to try and figure something out. If not, if you need a more thorough way of looking through the code, try breakpoints. And also try and isolate it and comment bits of code out that are unnecessary to what you're looking at. And finally, try and talk to someone about it. Talk to ChatGPT, Google stuff. Don't just sit there if you're stuck, because it can be very frustrating. And asking someone for help might mean that you learn something new about debugging from them, just like I did when I asked for help and someone taught me how to use breakpoints, which will be forever useful. Also, what is the weirdest or most annoying bug that you've ever fixed? Let me know in the comments, I'd like to know. And if you found this helpful, check out the rest of my channel because I have lots of beginner friendly videos. But other than that, I'll see you next time.